Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about staying motivated. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, I don't know if you've made a video covering this topic, but how would I stay motivated or avoid being bogged down from either being ignored from companies that I have applied to or being rejected? So this is something that feels tough. I'm going to just give you a disclaimer immediately. I am not a psychiatrist. I am in no way qualified to give life advice to someone who's feeling a little bit down, because what you're experiencing here is an emotional response to this is not a programming related thing. It has to do with you. It has to do with how you feel at an emotional level about you trying to get into the workforce. And this is something that I would say is not this is not unique to software development in any way. I think this is a much broader topic which anybody who's ever tried to go from school into the workforce uh, and had a little bit of problems finding a new job, and even if you've been working for years and you find that you're not as attracted on the job market as you would like, this is something that is going to be an issue to you. Being rejected is never fun, and it's never fun, especially not if you're being ignored or if it's continuously happening over and over. But what I can tell you is that the way that I've dealt with this is to try to understand that you can only do what you can do to fix this situation. What I mean by that is that if you truly know that you are giving it your all, you're trying to continuously learn, trying to continuously improve yourself, you're trying your best to be the best version of yourself that you can be, then the rest really comes down to sticking your nose to the grindstone and continuously trying to apply for jobs until you get a yes, so that you can get your foot in the door. And even if for some reason that takes a little while, you have to understand that you can't let the fact that someone is deeming you worthy, you can't let that deter you from getting to that point. Because even if you get 100 no's and one yes, just as a person who does sales, there's a very nice it's called the law of averages, where if the idea is very simple, if you stick by something for long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a sale. And a salesperson, you think of yourself a little bit as someone who's going into telemarketing. If you think about a telemarketer, uh, imagine how many really bad conversations or how many no's they might get in a day to get one sale when they're just calling people up. If that's the case, they just call people up, cold call them and try to sell them something. Well, in the beginning, that's probably going to be emotionally kind of rough on them. Especially, I mean, if it's your first time doing it, it's probably going to feel pretty bad. But at some point, if you continue doing it, you're going to be desensitized to getting the no. And you're also going to find something which is interesting, I think. You're going to learn tricks. You're going to pick up small hints and tips from your interactions that actually helps you get better at the process. And that is what I think is beautiful about this idea of the law of averages, that if you continue doing it, you're going to improve. And if you just have that with you, if you don't try to block out, there are numerous very good exercises that you can do on meditation and mindfulness and so forth, where you try to get out of your head a little bit, because the thing that's going to kill you when you feel down is when you're starting to get mean to yourself, when you start questioning yourself too much, when you have that internal voice that tells you that you're worthless, that tells you that you can't do it, and like tries to just put you down as much as possible. When you realize that that's not really helping you in any way, it's actually just putting you in a worse situation, and you find ways of coping with that. And there are many ways of coping. I mean, when I feel down, I might feel sorry for myself for a little, for sometimes it can be a long time. When I've been especially depressed, I might lie in bed for several days just feeling really sorry for myself and watch stuff on Netflix, or I watch stand-up comedy to try to lift my spirit. Because if you just embrace the fact that this sensation, this thing that you're feeling, is something that you can overcome, and you are not worthless. You're simply at a point in your life right now where you're trying something new. You're trying to get to be a better version of yourself, and just because that person that you are right now, right here today, isn't matching up to all the different companies that you are applying to, that doesn't mean that that doesn't have to mean that you're going to be that person in a year or 2 years, or I mean, it can be even a shorter time than that. You have to, just as someone who tries to get into shape, you have to think about yourself in the same way. If your expectation is that you're going to be super fit tomorrow if you start doing push-ups today, well, that's not very reasonable. But if you have the mindset that, you know what, I'm going to do what it takes to actually get into shape. I'm going to do push-ups every day or every other day. The fact that you're just sticking by it is actually going to get you further towards the goal of being able to be of being really fit than anything else. And the same thing goes for finding a programming job. If you continuously study and you continuously add value to your CV, you will get to a point where you are close enough to be applicable for a job position. It really comes down to that. It really comes down to you understanding that it's a learning process. You're never going to be the perfect software developer. You're going to continue learning forever. The only reason you're getting, at this point, you're getting ignored, or like companies are not really connecting to you, is because they don't see the value that you can bring. Like, there's a mismatch, what they need and what you can provide, or the perception of what you can provide at the very least. And so if you stick by it, at some point you're going to be good enough to be able to bridge that gap, and then you will get into the industry, and then from then on you're actually going to continue learning. But even if you're a master programmer, you have to understand that you might find there are other situations in the future when you might switch companies, even after several years of working, where they have expectations that you can't meet, and you have to do this process all over again. And so the most important thing that you can learn, I think, is how to cope, how to pick yourself up again, and understand that being rejected from something, or being ignored by a company and so forth, that's not necessarily because you're not good enough. It's not necessarily because you wouldn't be able to do the job. It's simply the fact that what the company needs at that exact moment, and the things that they are willing to do in order to figure out if you're a good fit or not, well, there's not a match. It's like trying to find a spouse or something like that. Just because you find that you go on a date, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get married and have kids or whatever you're going to do, right? It really comes down to you understanding that it is a numbers game. That is what it is. Continuous personal development together with a sane and empowering way of picking yourself up, a coping mechanism, if that makes sense, together with the law of averages, is going to get you to where you want to be. I can all but promise you that that's going to happen. So what I want you to take away from this is that the thing I think that you should do, if you feel that you're getting demotivated, or that companies aren't like returning your calls, is to formulate an understanding, like a strategy for how am I going to continue improving myself. Try to figure out, like, where is the mismatch. Is it because of personal reasons, because you're not, your CV is it you personally, like, are you putting something out there? Is there something you can do about your soft skills? Is it technical requirements? Is that the problem? Is it experience? Is that the problem? And look at ways for you to help yourself bridge some of those concerns that companies might have about hiring you. The second thing is, find a way for you to cope with feelings of anxiety and self-hatred and and depression and so forth. There are many people who are much more qualified than I am to help you with stress and all of these sorts of things, right? I have my tips and tricks that things that I do, and some of them may make sense to you, and some of them might not make so much sense. It doesn't really matter what it needs to be, what it is, just as long as it makes you feel better about yourself for the moment. Because as long as you can pick yourself up and continue the journey, you can get to do the third thing I was saying, and play the game of averages, or the law of averages. If you continue for long enough, you will get a sale, and that is the thing that you need. I promise you, it is that simple. You just need to understand that you don't have to hate yourself for being rejected by a company or being ignored. You simply have to make yourself feel better and then go on to the next thing. And before you know it, I promise you, it's going to hurt less and less. Just as a salesperson trying to figure out how to make a sale, or an actor who goes on a lot of auditions, you're never going to get to a point where you're never going to be rejected from something. But if you continue for long enough, you're going to start caring less about being rejected, and you're going to feel better about yourself. And third and lastly, you're actually going to get better at the thing, so your total amount of rejections are going to go down. It really just comes down to that. Making your way through and continuing the process. Have a great day.